Hey there, I'm Aki and welcome back to Subnautica News. Today we'll be taking a look at the Subnautica Below Zero plot, some new concept arts, as well as some really cool information on our bases. Now, I know that about the last 20 episodes have been about Subnautica Below Zero, but you have to admit that this is really cool. So first of all, we got a small but really interesting plot overview. So apparently we are a scientist studying precursor stuff on planet 4546b for the Alterra fleet in orbit. But sadly things go wrong and we are forced underwater, and then Alterra just wants us to send samples to their fleet, so they don't really care about us. If we survive, just give us the samples. Now, I know this is a pretty short overview, but there's a few things we can take away from this. We will be starting out on the surface, probably with an already built base, which we've also seen before on some other cards. But eventually we'll be forced to go under the surface of the ocean and probably encounter some pretty dangerous creatures there. We'll also have to collect samples for Alterra. This might include creature samples, plant samples, or maybe resource samples in order to figure out what is going on. But because we are studying precursors, this means we might also have to send stuff about the precursors to Alterra, so maybe pick up some iron crystals or send them pictures of the bases. So this adds an urge to explore to the game, which I really like because some people would just stay in the same shallows all the time and not even go out to the Grand Reef. Also thanks to Mars118 for showing me this blog from Tom Joubert, one of the developers of Subnautica, and he has some new information on Below Zero. So I'll link this to you in the description if you want to read it, but for now we'll just go over the story. So as we all know, in the beginning they didn't want to create a standalone game, but it has since turned into one, which I think is actually pretty cool. We will play as one of Alterra's contractors, a zoologist of alien life stationed in a frozen area of the planet, tasked with investigating the alien ruins. Of course, a complication will arise that throws everything upside down and forces you to dive deeper in search of answers. We hope this scenario gives us a neat twist on the original. You're still on the planet, fending yourself and surviving against the elements, but now you're in touch with the Vesper in the skies above, which completely changes the context of your actions and puts the story and character dialogue more in front and center. We think of it like the shift from Alien to Aliens, except it is in context only, not in gameplay. We're not turning our slow survival game into an action shooter. Ambitions. For this expansion to be worth the price of entry, it has to maintain what made Subnautica 1 wonderful, while delivering all new surprises. So we asked ourselves, what is Subnautica? I think Subnautica is adventure. It's mystery, peril, excitement and wonder. It's life basically. But can we keep amazing you by building bigger sea creatures? Can we further scare you by adding bigger teeth? Perhaps. Perhaps, but we need to go further. When you play Subnautica the first time, part of that experience is not knowing what the game is capable of. It's a basic survival game. Then the Aurora explodes, then you find ancient alien ruins. Then you have a telepathic connection with a sea monster, and so on. How can we pull the same trick twice, when this time you know what to expect? The simple answer is that the more I tell you now, the more difficult it's going to be. But I'll outline one of our ideas so you get the gist. In Below Zero, you're still going to be exploring an open world, finding abandoned bases, audio diaries, scanning creatures and following clues to the next big surprise. You're still going to be piecing the story together as you go. That story is still going to turn around human interaction with the natural and alien world. But I'm trying to tell the story in a way that is more character driven. In the base game, your character has no on-screen personality. They're an avatar. The character's motivations are always a sort of reduction of natural human motivations. You must survive, and everything you do in the game can be read as a means to that end, if you are so inclined as a player. No one can argue with that, but it's also a huge restriction to the kinds of stories your character can be involved in. In the base game, there is a disconnect between what happens in the survivor stories and what happens in the core alien mystery plot. The core story is in past tense. You discover what happened before, but nothing much changes in the present, with some exceptions, for example the sunbeam. In the expansion, I would like dialogue and core plot to be intertwined. To achieve that end, we are experimenting with using a speaking player character. This is a controversial decision, even within the team. To my mind, it carries two risks. One, it may create a disconnect between player motivation and character motivation. Two, too much protagonist voice may take away from the feeling of isolated survival. I hope I can mitigate these with solid writing and lots of playtesting and revisions. That's where you guys come in. But I accept that the decision itself will be an anthemna for some, I hope, small minority. I bite that bullet because playing it safe as a creative is just never a good option. If we fail, we may as well fail spectacularly. What I hope this gives us is a much greater variety of stories that we can tell, different ways we can surprise you, character relations which are actually developing as you progress in the game and which contextualize your actions and discoveries. An ending that is about more than survival. A beating emotional heart instead of, or perhaps in addition to, cold scientific analysis. These things may be very different, but they surely go together. So about the ending. The ending of the original Subnautica has always been and still is very emotional for me. This might just be because I have an entire channel revolving around it and because I kind of grew up with Subnautica. I think I can say that I've grown up a lot in these past few years, and you can definitely see some development if you look at my older videos. Please don't, they are horrible. But I think I like where they are going with this, because the character has always been kind of like, nothing really going on with him. But I think if they do it right, they can make this even better than Subnautica. The next thing is this concept art. So we've already seen a screenshot of this in game, and as you can see, they did a really good job on making this look like the concept. I really like this art and I love how they actually managed to put this into the game almost exactly the same way. Of course, the game textures will probably improve over time, but this already looks great. Another new concept art is this one. I found this on the trailer, so some of you might have already seen it, but this is a canyon that we will be able to explore. At least, hopefully, if it makes it into the game. So there are some new plants here, and the surface that we are standing on looks a little dangerous. I'm not sure if things will be there, or if it's just a very transparent part of the ice. But I think it would be cool if we would be able to see through the ice and maybe see some frozen creatures, or into a cave below this area. And here we have some more gameplay footage of some new mechanics about bases in Subnautica Below Zero. So the first thing you'll probably notice is, wow, the terrain has improved a lot. Yes it has, and I love it. They are updating the textures to make it look... Well, I can't talk today. They are updating the textures to make it look a lot more realistic, and they definitely did a good job on that. The second thing you'll notice is, why does that base look so weird? I am 99.9% sure that this is just a placeholder for the name, because if it wasn't, that would be pretty ugly. But it shows the concept of us naming bases, so we will most likely be able to name them, and if you look into this next clip, you can see that we will also be able to color them. This is similar to the Cyclops, where we have different areas that we can color differently, and this just adds a whole new level of customization to your bases, and it'll make them look even better than they already do. Now, some of these things, I can actually see them going back to the original game and adding them in there, because coloring bases should be compatible with the old game, so I don't see why they wouldn't do this. Things like the weather system, which we are getting as well, could also be added to the original game, which I would find amazing, because that means they are not giving up on that, but actually improving it as time goes on. I know this has been a rather short episode, but there's not much else to cover. So for now, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave a like. Let's see if we can get 400 likes. And as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!